This week, we're calling an audible and breaking down the Nintendo Direct from last week. This is the Good Game, Bad Game podcast.
This is a song I wrote about the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. Good Game, Bad Game podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Good Game, Bad Game podcast. I'm your host, Spencer. And with me is a man who may not be getting a new Splinter Cell, but he is getting a new Metroid Prime. It's my co-host, Mike. Mike, big day.
Small battles.
You didn't win the battle last week, but you did win the war.
Yeah. And I think I told you last week that I bought the original 3 Splinter Cell games from Goodwill for like $20.
Mm-hmm.
Just got them yesterday.
Oh.
So we'll see if I start playing those today or if I keep losing power.
You're just catching wins left and right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm on top of the world. Soft can't hurt me now. I've moved on. I don't even want a Splinter Cell remake. They can drop it. I'm good.
You've moved on.
Yes.
And now that they know that, we can expect the Splinter Cell remake in the coming weeks.
They can do whatever they want. I won't buy it.
I don't know if I believe it.
You should.
Okay, I do.
Good.
In case this is a reverse psychology thing where we're putting out that energy so that it gets created.
No, I'm done being hurt. Done being hurt. It's been 11 years of just pain.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Well, that's good. And hey, what better way to move on than with a new Metroid Prime, right?
Yeah. On the Switch too?
Maybe.
Probably.
Maybe, probably.
Or maybe not.
Tell me your weekend games. What'd you get up to?
I have terrible news, but probably unsurprising news. I don't think I played one video game since we last recorded.
So let's talk about that Nintendo Direct.
Yes, let's talk about it. I did go to Nintendo World.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so that was fun. Way less exciting than it was when the Wii came out.
I could imagine that. That's fair.
Yeah. But still cool.
I was going to say, you can't really hold that against them.
Tons of people there, and then like as we were walking through Manhattan that day, tons of people walking around with Nintendo bags.
Did you like get the urge to run up and steal the bags from them?
Yeah, I took every single one until I stole a little under $1,000.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yep. And then I just like set up a blanket outside of the Nintendo store and sold all of the stuff that I definitely didn't just steal.
It's a power move.
Yeah.
And
a proper allusion to like the state of New York right now, because the amount of people I just saw like carrying those bags, and granted, it's mostly just merch there now. They had some games. I don't know, like I didn't see any consoles for sale or anything, but just like games and accessories. I remember when the Wii came out and it was impossible to find. My family had happened to go to New York City and we went to Nintendo World and they happened to have a Wii there. And I remember we bought it for your brother because he still hadn't gotten one yet. And I remember my dad like making us walk in a diamond formation around the Wii. And like that was back when New York was allegedly better.
Yeah.
And now this time there was just people walking willy-nilly, phone in one hand, Nintendo World bag in the other.
So funny. In all fairness, though, with a coveted item like the Wii, it doesn't matter if you're walking through rural Arkansas. You should form a diamond and protect it at all costs during that craze. So
yeah, pretend like you have 4 friends and
yeah. Yeah, I mean, so I know last week we said we were going to talk about the indies and stuff, but Nintendo ended up holding their direct, and I feel like at least my personal reaction to it all was that that maybe should take priority because it was a pretty eventful show.
Just happened to be the best showcase of Summer Games Fest, but also not Summer Games Fest.
Yeah, so yeah, let's get right into it. Is that kind of where your standing is? Like this has been the best. This takes over the top spot from Xbox.
Yeah, I thought about it a lot, and a lot of it's biased because there's more games in the Nintendo showcase that I would play compared to the Xbox one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when you have a presentation and you're watching it and you're the whole time you're like, this is awesome, but also why can't you just die already? Like, I think you deserve the top spot in the summer showcase rankings.
Yeah. It was a pretty absurd show. Like I would give it a 10 out of 10 personally.
I would maybe go with like a 4. 2 out of 5 for those of you keeping track at home. No, the Metroid announcement alone made it a 10 for me. The other stuff on top of it, like, just absolutely insane.
Yeah. And I mean we can get into it. We don't need to like go over every single thing, but really just right off the jump they started it out with announcing a new Mario and Luigi game.
Mm-hmm.
And I
remember those games.
Right. Like, and I think like the fact that was like for me, that was out of nowhere. You know, I, as is the case with most Nintendo things, when you finally think something is dead and you just know to no longer expect or hope for it, that is when you naturally are going to get it. They said that it's the first new game in the in like the series, first new entry in the series in like 9 years, which is again very telling. You know, you think a franchise or a series or whatever is done, and then boom, there's another one. That was insane, and it's going to be out in. Did they say November
7?
Like insane.
Not as close to a shadow drop as you get.
Like I think every single thing that they showed, which was they showed a lot of stuff, and everything that was shown is coming out either this year or very early next year. I want to say like 90% of the stuff that was announced is coming out by the end of this year. Just insane. And obviously, like, with the fact that the Switch is, you know, coming up on the end now, right? And we still haven't gotten an actual, like, announcement for the next console. But, like, that's what you have to do, right? Like, it doesn't matter what's going to be coming out 2-3 years from now, really, until you're going to dedicate a showcase or, you know, like a full show to the next console. And they still just are like, they're so committed to not doing that. And they then just, this is the greatest end of life we've ever seen for anything.
I can only hope my end of life is this good.
Right. It's absurd. So
my thinking is they're really leaning into how marginal of an upgrade the Switch 2 will be.
Okay.
Because I imagine, you know, yes, they're selling these games for the original Switch. Like, we can assume 98% of that is true.
Mm-hmm.
But will still play fine on the next console. So they're really just like they're sticking to the philosophy that they've always had, where we're selling the game, not the system. The system is literally just the vessel to play the game.
Right.
And as ludicrous as that sounds, like, it's the one thing that Nintendo does differently. It's like, don't get excited about the console. So, and
Yeah.
people still do.
Well, I mean, it's just crazy when we live in a world in the gaming sphere that is so dominated over, dumb console war stuff, right? And the console war stuff is always just PlayStation versus Xbox, but like, damn if this showcase, this direct from Nintendo doesn't kind of show that whole console war fight is over essentially second place.
It absolutely is.
You know what I mean? Like, if it's funny, nobody talks about Nintendo, and really, it's whatever reason you want to say, but to me, it seems like nobody's talking about it because it's so clearly obvious that they're the best. I mean, look at the show they just put on, right? And look at what they've done for this console now over its entire lifespan, just constantly pushing new and surprising releases to it, things that you just like, especially when you're talking about potentially like the last year of its life, you would not expect these types of announcements for these like very spectacular announcements. I mean, it's insane. And they do it while not getting caught up in the like graphics race, because they've realized that they don't need to worry about that nobody's looking for a hyper realistic looking Mario, and
most people are praying to not have that.
Right. But you can still make graphical improvements to these like series overall, and it's in some ways almost like more meaningful and kind of has like more of an impact, even if it's not necessarily pushing the technology of today. It's still they're still finding ways to do improvements, right? So just what a show. They kick it off with a incredible announcement for Mario and Luigi. I thought that Nintendo World Championships game was such a cool concept.
Yeah.
Like I found that very interesting.
I was trying to figure out if it was going to be like its own game or if it was just a feature they're adding to the virtual console.
I think it's its own game.
Yeah, I think so too. Did you see in the physical, like the collector's edition, there was like an actual NES cartridge that came with it?
Yeah.
I'm like, do you know what that is? I didn't get a chance to look into it. Like, is it actually an NES game?
I don't think so. I think it's like I think it's a display thing.
Oh, okay. Still cool.
Yeah.
If I had a competitive bone in my body, I'd be all over that.
I know. That is literally my only reservation with it, is that it's just like, but I don't care. Like speed running and stuff like that. Like, it's such a cool concept. But I just like, okay. But like, that's coming out in July. Other things that were like more Switch specific, they announced basketball is coming to Switch Sports, so like they're continuing to update that game, which is great, awesome to see.
Yeah, did that come out?
I thought that
a lot of these.
Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say a lot of the updates for existing games they provided were like, it's out tonight or it's out now or.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the ones that was supposed to be, along with like they announced a bunch of games that were going to be coming to the Nintendo Switch Online expansion thing. And I thought they were saying, I thought every update, like you said, was basically announced for that night or the next day.
The IGN article just says this summer, so
maybe the basketball update is one of the ones that wasn't.
Maybe.
We got to look at Donkey Kong Returns HD. So that came out on the Wii and is getting a re-release.
Yeah. I guess it was the Wii, and then it was re-released on the 3DS with more levels, and now it's getting re-released.
Yeah. But that's like a solid.
Um,
That's a solid choice. I feel like.
yeah. So we were out last week before we got to watch it, and people were telling us about the Nintendo Direct, and they said that the original Donkey Kong Country was getting remade. At least that was my impression. I don't know. We were a couple of drinks in, and I was talking to Justine. I was like, "Yeah, like, would be cool. I would play it." And then we were watching it, and it was talking about the Wii. I'm like, "That's really strange." And apparently, Justine had never played that game, so she's stoked. And
I
I'm ready
also.
to just ruin all of her fun with Donkey Kong.
Yeah, when you heard that, like, you can do co-op play, you're like, brilliant.
Mhm.
Justine can carry, but you can sit there and say that in some way you helped.
Yeah. Like I just
Um,
ride on the back of Donkey Kong, literally and figuratively.
yeah,
And then like when she needs me to do something, I go do it, and then I hop back on, and I
yeah,
don't fuck anything up.
no, that's great. You know your role.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also thought it was a. I thought Donkey Kong Returns in general was a Wii remake of the original Donkey Kong Country, but I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But yeah, like that's a solid choice. And then they also announced. I believe this was the first time I remember seeing it. I know it's not a Switch exclusive, but they announced Dragon Quest III remake, which is coming out in November, and then they also teased that Dragon Quest 1 and 2 are getting a remake as well in and those are going to release in 2025, which I thought that was really interesting to like release a remake of the third game first and then the other two. But when they had the creative behind it talking about it, he did say that like he thinks it'll be like interesting for people to experience the story playing it 3-1-2. So it sounds in some ways to be intentional. I also thought it was funny that 1 and 2 are bundled together and 3 is by itself. But anyway.
Well, I think they said in the direct that that's how it is chronologically. Like 3 is a prologue.
Like story-wise, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. But I didn't realize that. So when I just saw 3 was coming out first and then 1 and 2, when you think just numbers,
Yeah.
I was like,
impression.
I was like, that's so bizarre. That's such a bizarre choice. And it's like, oh, it's very intentional. So that's cool. And I loved that Nintendo was the one to kind of showcase this because I think, and this goes for every single thing that was shown at the Direct, beyond stuff that, like, including stuff that wasn't exclusive to the Switch. Everything just felt right. Like, they don't go outside of their means to showcase a game that just doesn't have that, like, Nintendo feel in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? I think it's great, and I love that they get like these big games to also be playable on the Switch, and an easy one to constantly talk about is like The Witcher, right? And I think announcing that stuff can be exciting, but I also just think there's something to be said about the song and dance of exclusivity, right? And like convincing people that like this is the place to play a game, even if it's not the only place to play the game. And I think they did a really nice job with the game choices that they ended up showcasing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a tremendously good point. It was just very well mixed together. Again, considering how late we are in the timeline, I mean, you look at the history of really any console manufacturer, but Nintendo in specific, like you get to the end and there's a couple like last second like Mario games or whatever, but then it's typically just like almost like fodder.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just not the case this time.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even get to potentially the 3 biggest announcements, which I would say are a new Mario Party game.
Yeah, that one shocked me.
And I think this thing looks good. Like I'm actually really excited for this.
Yeah.
Uh,
I hope they don't drop the ball. Like it's so hard because I love Mario Party. It's one of my favorite franchises, but like it's just been so repeatedly bad. Don't get me wrong, All Stars or Superstars, whatever it was, the last one,
mhm.
like a lot of fun.
Mhm.
It just has no legs. Like
Yeah.
you play it a handful of times and you've already seen it.
Right. And I
Like
think
we basically like play that game only to do like mini games. We don't
right.
even do the board game anymore.
And I think the shame of, is it Superstars or All Stars, whatever that newest one is. I think the shame of it is that all of the boards that were used are from Mario Party, Mario Party 2, and Mario Party 3. So they're just reusing old boards, and that kind of sets you up for this opportunity to basically do what you did with like Mario Kart, where you keep kind of like re-releasing boards, but with like the updated like feel of the current generation. And so yeah, it did really feel like they dropped the ball on that. And the first one that came out on the Switch was good, but again, it just kind of lost all of that like the fun of, I guess, Mario Party in a lot of ways. This one, what they said, there's 5 new boards, and they also have a board from Mario Party and a board from Mario Party 2. So I don't know if that's like a sign that maybe they're going to do like they'll bring a board from 3 and a board from 4 later on, and then one from 5 and 6. Like who knows, right? But
hopefully,
they said a bunch of new mini games, which is obviously that's realistically the best part of the Mario Party games. And there were a bunch of different modes too that they were kind of showcasing. All of them seemed really interesting. The game itself looks so promising. I have a ton of high hopes. Hopefully, I'm not getting too amped for it, but that announcement definitely again shocked me. And to your last point, like if anything, I like this entire direct, that could have been the biggest thing, right? That could have been the only like Mario type thing, but it's gonna release on this Switch towards that end of life thought process. But after we get this announcement about a new Mario Party, we get the announcement of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom.
Yeah, that. See, these are the type of Legend of Zelda games I get excited for, like kind of like the 2D or like 2.5D, whatever you call it.
Mm-hmm.
This game looks really cool, and the fact that they're completely changing like the play style. I mean, you're not running around with like a bow and arrow and sword and shield and bombs and such. Like you're essentially using like puzzle solving and logic in the entire game, and I just think that's really cool. I think it'll be a nice refresh, and this is definitely a game I'll play at some point.
So freaking cool. The whole Echo concept is, I think, fantastic. And they like stressed during the announcement that like every player's experience can be completely unique because of how you can like go about various areas using the echoes and like using the monsters that you kind of pick up to like fight alongside you and stuff like that. I think it just seems so cool. And like the whole concept of how you're going to have to like traverse through areas by like placing tables and stuff like that to like jump on. I think it's so cool. And again, it's just one of those things where it was an announcement that just completely blew me away. Like I was utterly shocked by this because it's one of those things where you're just not prepared for a new Legend of Zelda game, and then on top of that, you're not prepared to be playing as Zelda. So I think this might be the announcement that for me kind of like takes the cake because of like just how like I was not prepared for it in any way whatsoever. And then the thing that was craziest about it is that they announced that it's going to come out in September 26th. And I literally put in my note, what the fuck? Like, that's crazy.
How did they hide it?
Right. And they
got that September 26th, and then less than a month later, the new Super Mario Party game.
Right. I mean, dude, it's just like an absolute win for anybody who is a Switch gamer. Like the eating is good and has been good and continues to stay good, and it's just absurd.
One thing before we move on from Legend of Zelda, I just have to applaud like that they brought the creativity from the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom games.
Yes.
Into like the 2D space. Like I would have to assume that like the inspiration for the echoes kind of come from all the positive feedback of how creative you can be, especially in Tears of the Kingdom for problem solving and building ways to navigate the map, and then having that different experience depending on how you want to play. Like, so cool they were able to listen to that and then take that into a completely different format.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I had the same feeling, right? Is like they're definitely capitalizing on the Tears of the Kingdom and how that like really blew up. But using it to like, you're not just playing Tears of the Kingdom and those graphics and everything like that, and now you're just Zelda instead of Link, right? Like it's the different art style of it, right? Like it's like the what was that? A Link to the Past remake that they did, right? It's like that same art style. So who knows? Maybe they like were immediately working on this after completing that remake, and when they saw how well received the creativity aspect of Tears of the Kingdom was, they were like, boom, that's our game for Zelda. Just so freaking cool. And I also love that, like, here we are in the year 2024, and you have this franchise that is called The Legend of Zelda, and finally, you're actually playing as the namesake, which I thought was really funny. There were a couple of really great takes. I think I saw Chris said at one point that it was a missed opportunity to call this The Legend of Link. And somebody else said that they like tried to pull the whole thing where when you're watching the trailer, Link falls into like the Shadow Realm or whatever. And they were like, who the fuck are you playing as? You just watched Zelda drop into the Shadow Realm. I was like, yeah, this is great. We should get plenty of run with these jokes.
It will, like, if this is somebody's first time playing Legend of Zelda game, though, it is going to absolutely break them if they don't have any context. Like, we're either going to make a big joke of this, or we're perpetuating the wrongness in playing as Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, this is going to become somebody's new favorite franchise. And now we just got, like, 60 more years of hearing you play as Zelda.
Right. It's fantastic.
Oh, cool. Zelda has a little hat in this game.
And then really the final big announcement was Metroid Prime. Which again, it's one of those things where you feel like it's just never gonna actually come. And so when they started announcing it, I did let out a no way because I in some ways couldn't believe it, but I think this looks good. But I'll let you run with Metroid Prime.
Yeah, I had the unfortunate experience of having this whole like event spoiled before I could watch it. So I didn't get like the shock.
Yeah.
But to actually see gameplay, like when I heard, because I really just heard that Metroid Prime 4, like they talked about it. Like I didn't know there was actual gameplay. And to see that just gave me so much hope. And then it was like, looks pretty good. Wonder if it's going to be a Switch 2 game.
I did write down. They say it's coming in 2025. I didn't catch. I should have gone back and rewatched it before we recorded. I did not catch at any moment them say coming to the Switch in 2025. Everything else, right? Like says like coming to the Switch or like has the
did it?
The Switch like logo and whatnot, right? Like at the end and along with the date. This just said coming in 2025. There's no mention of Switch at any point. And I don't know if I'm reading too much into that, but going off of
Maybe it's for the Wii U.
just thinking back to what you and I said, how like I think you said that you thought Metroid Prime might be a candidate for like a launch game.
Bet your ass I did.
And like I don't know if that's necessarily a huge system seller, right? Like the Metroid Prime series historically doesn't like boast insane sales numbers, but nonetheless, to have it be a launch game and a part of like a launch catalog would be a huge win for, you know, the gamers and just like the company as a whole. And it does still act as a selling point 100%. So I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I thought that was interesting. I didn't pick up on them saying coming to the Switch at any point, and I felt like it was so blatant in every other announcement. So I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't happen to catch that they were saying like coming to Switch. Like that seems like a little redundant in a Nintendo presentation, but
like
yeah,
it's just like especially the games that like aren't exclusives, like Farmagia or something, right? Like was like launching on Switch in winter 2024 or something like that, right? And it's like again, it's that whole like song and dance of convincing somebody that like this is the place to play it and stuff. But you know, every other game that is an exclusive, maybe they didn't say coming to the Switch like verbally, but again, they have that like at the end of the trailer, red screen, white text, release date, and then at the bottom, like the, you know, the company and then Nintendo Switch, right? And that they didn't have that for Metroid Prime, so I don't know. I'm hung up on it. Maybe I'm too hung up on it. Like I said, maybe I'm putting my tinfoil hat on too tight, but that did feel like a push towards like maybe this is going to be a launch game.
Yeah, I really think it will be, and I do think it'll help sell consoles. I mean, I think about the people that I saw that played like the Metroid Prime remake, who like that was their first time playing Metroid Prime, and
it's a good
said,
point.
Like, how good it was.
Yeah,
I think there's a whole new audience. Unfortunately, there's really no good way to play Metroid Prime 2 and 3, you know, in between. But, you know, I think it's a hard dance because I think they may have gotten people with Metroid Prime 1 being remade. And then I think they might, unless they shadow drop it like this holiday season, a remake of 2 and 3, which I think they had this, it was in talks that they were working on, but just kind of fell off and they only released 1. And then have 4 come out. I don't know. I think that audience is going to grow, and I mean, for me, if it's a launch game, I'm getting a console day one.
right.
If I can.
Yeah, I mean,
so
it just again, what an insane direct. So many great announcements. And in a lot of ways it's truly unbelievable that a console that is for sure in its last year, you know, at this point, still has all these bangers coming to it.
In its last year of like being the primary console,
Hmm.
I genuinely think that if you're not interested in like the new hardware, that you're going to still be able to be playing new games on the Switch for a lot of years.
Yeah, I'd have to imagine, right? Like,
Like I think the original Switch might have like 5 more years of support. Now keep in mind that like every time Nintendo has done that before, there have been games that have come out that like you absolutely cannot play on the old console, which like that makes sense. What's the point in releasing a new console then?
yeah.
But I think we're going to continue to see like I don't know, if there's a new Mario Kart game or something like I could see that coming to Switch. If there's a new third person Legend of Zelda game, like I could see that only being on Switch too. I imagine like Metroid Prime 4, seeing as it's been in at least in talks for 7 years now,
Hmm.
it'll probably play on the Switch. And we might be like 2 or 3 years out from seeing like whatever they call it, new Switch or Switch U.
Switch you.
Yeah. Um, we might start seeing those games that can only be played there.
I don't know. I just like wonder because how long was the grace period of, and obviously this isn't the same, but how long was the grace period of DS to 3DS? It kind of felt like the 3DS came out and then the wall immediately went up.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the intention from the start, and I think
Yeah.
they kind of learned from that. I mean, same thing with the Wii and Wii U. And you look at the Wii U and the 3DS, like I would say 80% of Switch owners or 80% of like Nintendo customers want longevity.
Yeah.
They don't want to feel like they have to buy the new thing right away, but they will eventually. It'll be a Christmas gift for somebody a couple of years out.
Sure.
So I would hope they've learned their lesson in like having some degree of cross compatibility for at least the first 5 years.
We'll see.
Yeah. Like you said, the Switch is already going to be a 10-year-old console come next year. So Nintendo doesn't really owe anybody anything with it.
Yeah. I mean,
I just
it's
think there's a balance between repeating the past and moving on.
right. So with the fact that we didn't get any sort of true or real announcement about the next console, when do you like this was the time for it, When do you expect we actually get something concrete?
I think we'll know by like I don't know. I think we might find out in like September.
And then
Like
when do
when
you
we're at the tail end of like the video game show season.
okay. And then when do you expect it to actually release?
Probably first quarter
First quarter of 25, so by end of March.
25. Yeah. I think they're going to hold on to their well, see here's the thing, Nintendo I don't think generally waits that long, right?
Right.
I don't know. So maybe we find out holiday season and then it comes out in January, or you want to get really crazy, they announce it in September and it comes out holiday season?
Yeah.
We know it's 2025, right? Like that's been pretty much confirmed.
Yeah, and I think basically it was said that like we should hear something about it officially by March of 2025. Because they
I don't
said that they would announce it within their their fiscal year.
I'm going in with the complete bias that we saw Metroid Prime 4 gameplay, and I'm going to assume that that was at least on a Switch 2 dev machine that we saw.
Yeah. Okay.
And I can't imagine that Metroid Prime 4 is waiting until second quarter of 2025. Like I think if that were the case, then they should have waited to show anything.
Yeah, I hear you. Just trying to get a vibe check real quick. Switch did come out in March 3rd, 2017. So yeah, I mean, I guess a September announcement with a March release would probably relatively track.
Do you know what was the Switch announce?
Let's see if I can find that.
I want to say it was like October or November of the year before. I remember watching it.
First public news. First public news was March 17th, 2015, but that was probably just when they were referring to it still as like a code name and all that. In an investors meeting in 2016, they announced the plan of March 2017. It didn't unveil. Let's see. It didn't unveil during E3. October 20th, 2016, Nintendo officially announced the console under the name Nintendo Switch, alongside a trailer that demonstrated the hardware's nature as a hybrid device. So yeah, September or maybe October. They could mimic that same timeline.
Yeah. I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah, you might be bang on with that. Well, I'm still extremely excited. I will say, with all the praise that we're throwing around, if I may, I do have something bit of a negative to toss at Nintendo, if you would be so kind as to indulge.
Of course.
So, as we've talked about, and as I think we all agree, especially everybody listening, this was one of the greatest shows we've probably ever seen when it comes to a console and all the circumstances around it, right? But dear listener and Mike, why no new Mario baseball game? Okay, I've been sitting on it. I've been taking my lumps and considering it's the end of it and all that. But you know what? I'm sick and tired of it because I keep having that thought process, and then we just got a brand new Mario and Luigi game announced, and now Zelda gets her own game before a baseball game. Are we sure? Are we sure about that?
I've got some sage advice for you.
Say I don't want it. Just move on with my life.
Say you don't want it and move on with your life.
Listen.
I don't want to see you spiral through the same dark abyss that I've been spiraling down the past 10 years.
You're
not getting it. It's not coming. Play the old game.
Okay. All right. I'm ready to move on, but I swear to God, if we get another Captain Toad or some shit, I'm going to lose it. I'm gonna punch a hole through a wall. That is the one thing that I think still is, between the two of us, if one of us can always have something to want and desire and everything like that, I feel like I'm now somewhat the one left holding the bag now that you've cleaned up your Splinter Cell stuff and are being granted Metroid Prime 4 for good behavior.
Yep.
I feel like I'm now left holding the bag of disappointment and hope. I literally think that's the only thing missing though, from this Switch lineup. And I think the thing I'm most excited for is I'm really excited to see what they do with a new console because they actually had a lot to work with in some ways to the Wii U not doing so well, right? Like they were able to bring a bunch of games that people very clearly missed out on and bring those just to the Switch. And, that I'm sure made in some ways things a bit easier for them. But a brand new Mario Kart, a new Smash for people to be excited about. All that stuff on a new console is just going to be really exciting. I can't wait. And in the meantime, again, the eating is still very good for Switch folks.
Just not eating in left field.
No, we are not. I mean, we got another soccer game.
You don't want another Mario Hoops?
Mario Hoops? I mean, it's true. We could, I guess, get that. I guess anybody who's a diehard Mario 3-on-3 fan has a right to be more upset than I do.
Mm-hmm.
They got one installment. Mario Baseball at least has 2. But we got golf, we got soccer, we got golf, we got 3 Mario Party games now. And yeah, we complained about those first 2, but all right, I'm done. Anything else from the Direct that you wanted to touch on?
Just wanted to call out the new Virtual Console stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Mature. Was it just Nintendo 64 they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's cool. Gonna finally play Perfect Dark, which is hilarious because I was at a used game store sometime in the past couple weeks and I almost bought that.
Yeah.
Now I don't need to.
It's probably like what, like $20?
It wasn't bad. I think it might have been even less than that.
Oh wow. Bit of a steal.
Yeah. So that and then 4 Swords.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, I think somebody posted you might be able to play every single Zelda game in some capacity on the Switch.
That's amazing.
Maybe I'm misreporting that, but I thought
the Switch will be for Zelda what the Wii U was for Metroid.
Just crazy. I mean, they really do just nail it. They really know how to capitalize on their library, and they do it justice.
Yeah.
You think about all the games that get like these remakes and stuff, and you can probably sit and say that there are certain games that are technically more deserving and whatnot, and you can fight about that, but they always seem to pick, in my eyes, good choices. So I'm for it. We're seeing games that released back on the NES getting, remakes or, slight improvements made to the overall, like gameplay of the game. And I think that's fantastic. There were so many fantastic games that, anybody who's just jumping into gaming now would have missed out on. And so to afford people that opportunity is pretty spectacular. They're doing a fairly good job at it, I would say.
Well,
that it?
That's that.
That's that. All right.
What a great show.
Yeah. Fantastic. All right. Well, then that'll do it for this week. Next week, we will actually finally talk about the indies and kind of put a nice bow on Summer Game Fest and really the crazy month of June that we've had. So, as always, thank you all so much for listening. Let us know what you're most excited about from the Nintendo Direct. There's, I think, plenty to be excited about. And as always, if you could leave us a rating or review wherever you do listen to this podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. Other than that, if you could share the podcast with a friend, it would help us out. And we'll talk to you next week.